AS Monaco has had a much slower start to the season than FC Barcelona, recording 2 wins and a draw in their first opening games. But they do sit fourth on the table, and by slow meaning they only scored 4 goals. By no means should this Monaco team be underestimated, since the Joan Gamper embarrassment is not that long ago. But I think Monaco fans would tell their players the same thing, that they shouldn't think that this is the Joan Gamper, as Barcelona is a much different team. Join me as we analyze the UEFA Champions League clash between Monaco and Barcelona, and as always, do subscribe to the channel. In the league opener against Etienne, they lined up as 4-4-2. However, that was only really on paper, as Ben and Takumi Minamino would operate just in behind the 2 strikers in the half spaces. That's to draw the opposition narrow, which would allow their fullbacks just to bomb down this flank on both sides actually, in order to keep the width. And one of Zakaria and Kamara had to take a deeper role, maybe even tucking in between the centre backs for some extra cover. Like in the average positioning, we are seeing that one of the players are deeper, and look at the positioning of Takumi Minamino and actually Ben, and their fullbacks took up a very high position in this game, so they are really relying on their fullbacks to keep the width for them. This central overload is to make sure that the ball is moving pretty well, and they also commit a lot of players forward to disorient the opponent's back line. Like not even 20 minutes into the new season, you see the 2 strikers dropping off, pulling the backline out of position, where Minamino and Ben can actually run ahead of them to get in behind. In this case, it's Minamino who gets the ball and he actually finishes it off, but luckily for St. Etienne, that was flagged offside for them. You see, the central overload is their biggest weapon, and that is what can make Monaco so dangerous, because up top you have 2 powerful strikers who's perfectly capable of holding off their man. Which allow Minamino and Ben to easily get in behind. In the case where the central progression doesn't work out, we do see that the fullbacks is an outlet, whether it's deep or high up the pitch. The stats say that the wings have been used more prominently to attack than the center, despite them having a central overload. However, this creates an illusion, because they did use the center. But the flanks was actually a gateway for Monaco, because they used these wide big forwards in order to get the opposition in order to come across and defend. And Ben and Minamino would make these late runs into those holes that appeared. Also, both forwards could focus on either side, where the centre backs were forced to actually follow them wherever they would go, and these late runs again would come up. Here's a perfect example of Balogun and Embolo being in the half space, slightly operating in that space, drawing the backline across, and look how disoriented they are, which in turn would leave Minamino clean open on goal. But unfortunately, in this opener for Monaco, Minamino couldn't actually score this goal right here, so great tactics. In the second game against Lyon, they still line up as 4-4-2, but a very different system they were playing in this game. We saw a dedicated back 3 with a double pivot for cover. Even with the overload to isolate tactic, where they would draw the opposition to one side, you saw that Embolo joined Ben as a free 8, where they would drop and circulate in behind Balogun, who was pushing the backline back. And Takumi Minamino took up a deeper role, but this could be Ben and Minamino as well who would circulate. The left side of Monaco was much more fixed and figured out, compared to the right-hand side, where Embolo was more than happy to keep the width on the side. However they made turns, Balogun also was more than happy to keep the width on the right-hand side. But Monaco's wing play was really on display, where they had protection, hence why we saw a double pivot, and Ben and Minamino operate just ahead of them to protect the center, with the players centrally holding their positions that drew the opponents narrow, where we would see the fullbacks would fully overlap and look for those far post crosses that would get in behind, which saw Monaco on many occasions through on goal. In their third match, the manager decided to shake things up in a 4-2-3-1 situation as he wanted to try something different. Even they had this new formation now, there was still a lot of fluidity between the front three, even though they had fixed positions as well. The problem now, however, when the front three was up top, that created a lot of space and distance between the midfield and the strikers. And now they had a tough time because the two players that was deep was not so good on the ball, and a lot of turnovers happened because the double pivot now had the job of linking up the play with the forwards as well, seeing Minamino is up top so far. So a lot of turnovers happened, especially with the fullbacks being so high, that left Monaco totally vulnerable on the counter attack. So they would easily be getting in behind the defense of Monaco as well. You see, now the progression was solely on the double pivot, as previously with the 4-4-2 you had Ben and Minamino, who was great progressors of the ball. So the distance was really a problem for Monaco. And now the turnovers could easily happen, and many a times they would find themselves in 3-on-2 situations, even 4-on-2 situations as the opposition pressed well. The 4-4-2 situation for Monaco is by far their most dangerous weapon that they have, with Ben and Minamino coming into the midfield as they want to gain control. However, it's going to be interesting to see how they use their fullbacks, because in that situation, they would have to bring their fullbacks up a lot higher than usual. And with the ability of Lamine Yamal and Rafinha, it's going to kind of be suicide for Monaco if they would do that. So it's an interesting clash to see what Monaco is going to do against Barcelona, because I believe that their manager do have the tactical prowess to keep up against Barcelona. However, I think, like I said in the beginning of the video, it's going to all come down to quality. As always, do subscribe to the channel. It's going to help us a lot to get this family to go bigger. Thank you very much for watching.